Good afternoon. As always, I'll start with a quick synopsis of our last performance. And like I said after the game, I thought the significant element of play was the turnover ratio. But not only in this game, and if you look back over the last 8 quarters of football for us, as a football team, it's something that we got to tighten up rather quickly. We've turned the ball over some on offense. We got to do a better job of safeguarding and preserving it in everything that we do, whether it's run or passing or running with the football, et cetera. And on the defensive side of the ball, save the last snap of the game in Jacksonville, we've played 8 quarters of football without creating a turnover. And I think that you can't have one discussion without the other. Turning the ball over is less of an issue if you're getting it. Not getting turnovers is less of an issue if you're preserving and taking care of it. So we've got issues in both areas, and it's created issues for us globally. We were fortunate to get out of Jacksonville. We talked about that, and obviously we weren't able to get out of Denver. So we got some work to do in that area. It's very fundamental. We always work in that area, but it's a recentering, if you will, a point of emphasis, and we'll continue along those lines until we get the desired result. And to be quite honest with you, we better get the desired result very quickly because of the significant challenge that we have coming before us. There were a lot of other things in the game, plays made by them, plays made by us, plays not made by us, but that was a significant component of play, and I think it always is. We as a football team, if there's one area that we're lacking in terms of development, is that turnover ratio. I think we're toward the bottom part of the league, and again, it's twofold. We got to do a better job of taking care of it. We got to do a better job of seizing it and getting it, particularly with some of the duress that we've been able to create defensively. We create a lot of sacks and so forth. Just by virtue of those statistics, it should be the type of helter-skelter necessary to get turnovers, and it just hadn't happened for us, so we got some work to do. On the injury front, Vance McDonald has a hip. They'll limit him at the early portion of the week. We'll let his participation be our guide. Xavier Grimble is in the concussion protocol. Bud Dupree has a pec injury that his participation will be our guide in terms of his availability. Some other bumps and bruises, man. We anticipate Stephon Tuitt working tomorrow, at least in some capacity, and letting that be our guide in terms of his march back, and the same with Gilbert. It's good to kind of get some of those type of guys back, although, I was really pleased with the play of Chooks. I think we're showing unique depth at the tackle position. Sometimes, someone else's misfortune creates an opportunity for others, and our expectation, but, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge those guys meeting those expectations. Matt Filer has done it repeatedly here in recent weeks. We've talked openly about that, but due to Matt's injury, it gave Chooks an opportunity, and I thought he was definitely above the line in terms of his play. So we'll be smart. We'll look at the healthy bodies. We'll distribute the reps accordingly and make decisions relative to who plays in that division of labor based on that, how the week unfolds. Now, on to the Chargers. Man, they're a formidable bunch. They're an 8-3 football team. I know that their offense gets a lot of recognition, and rightfully so, under the leadership of Phillip Rivers and company, and what they were able to do as recently as last weekend. But I'll start with their defense, because their defense is a formidable one. They got one of the top defenses in the NFL. Gus Bradley is their coordinator. They're a very fundamental group. They don't give up big plays. They're stout versus the run and the pass. If you look at the stats, it bears it out. They're well balanced. They're really kind of in all areas. They're competitive in just about any situation you put them in. They're getting back to full strength in terms of having some key components. They got Joey Bosa back, and we're preparing for him to be an every down player. He's played 2 games, and I'm sure they've just been kind of getting him back into the fold. We're anticipating him being an every snap player. Obviously, he's going to be a formidable tandem along with Ingram. This AFC West football with these rush tandems, the one we saw a week ago, we got a lot of respect for those guys in Kansas City. We got our work cut out for us, working to minimize that tandem and their impact on the game. Derwin James is a top-notch safety, man. You're seeing his impact and the positive contributions his presence is bringing to him, not only in terms of what he's able to do in the secondary. He had an interception, I think, a week ago, but the things that he's able to do on and around the line of scrimmage, whether it's in the run game and first and second down, whether it's in the blitz game. I think he's got 3.5, 4 sacks, or just the general disruption that his presence provides. He's often too big for perimeter people to block and deal with, and obviously his athleticism is an asset to him against much bigger people. But they got a good group on all levels. They got quality players throughout. Like I mentioned earlier, they're a fundamentally sound group. They're a fundamentalist group. They play hard. They're always in place. So we got to do a good job there. On the other side of the ball, Phillip Rivers and company has been getting a lot of notoriety and recognition, and rightfully so. Man, they're playing at an unbelievable level right now. I think it can just be displayed in their yards per play on 1st and 10. I think they're 7.06 yards a play on first down for the season. I think it's 2 teams in the NFL that's averaging 7 yards on first down. Is them and the Rams, I think, or maybe them, the Rams in Kansas City. So that's the type of company that they're keeping in terms of damage that they're producing on 1st and 10. So forget possession downs. You know, they're getting you on 1st and 10, and it just speaks to Phillip Rivers, their planning, the autonomy that they give him in terms of getting in good plays at the line of scrimmage. When you're averaging 7 yards a play on first down, it's because you got no negative plays. You know, they give that guy enough latitude. He's getting out of negative plays or potentially negative situations. You don't see him getting dropped behind the chains very often. And it just speaks to their schematics and what they do under Coach Wiz, but also the latitude, autonomy, and the intelligence that Phillip Rivers has and the way they're able to utilize it in terms of attacking people. They got a myriad of receivers, obviously, man, all talented. First rounders and so forth, man. Antonio Gates and others at tight end. He's got a full complement of people. You know, but when you're talking about playing a team that's good on both sides of the ball, like I outlined, and the number of weapons that they have, you really turn your attention and your focus back to yourself and focusing on what it is that you do and what it is you do well and how you execute. So we're proceeding with that thought in mind. We better be at our best. We better play a Steeler ball and worry about us and be in the positions that we need to be and be on the details of our assignment so that we can get back into some winning football. We're excited about being at Heinz Field, being at home in front of our fans. We're looking forward to that. Questions?
Mike, what can be done by defenses to create turnovers?
You know, it starts, first of all, with just simply ball awareness. And we teach that and talk that probably more than anything. Being aware of where the ball is located, who's holding it, how they're holding it, and what they're trying to do with it, and how that relates to your assignments. And that's just a general football 101 description of ball awareness. But I think anytime you're talking about getting the football from a defensive perspective, it starts there. So everyone can relate to that. A defensive line can relate to a defensive lineman can relate to that relative to his pass rush. A defensive back can relate to that relative to covering people and attempting to break up potential completions, et cetera. I think everyone can talk about and think about how ball awareness relates to the specific task that they have to do within any particular defensive call.
So, Mike, to connect the dots then between what you're talking about, between creating more turnovers and how good they are on first down, how are they winning on first down, and how can you attack that to be aware? Are they doing it with Rivers throwing the ball?
You know, don't get me wrong. Now they run the ball very well too. They're a top 5 rushing team in the NFL per play. So when they choose to run, they're running successfully. When they choose to pass, they're passing successfully. And I think therein lies the awesome capabilities that they have. They have very good planning, and on top of that very good planning, they have a guy at the line of scrimmage that's capable of getting them out of negative circumstances or getting them into an ideal concept to attack what it is he looks at. And you just see that on a lot of their video. They get to the line of scrimmage, he changes plays, he calls plays, and they're big plays.
Like if you're teaching the defense to attack the ball, is there a danger in hurting your pass coverage or maybe in your tackling if they're pursuing the ball? Can that be a negative in terms of your tackling?
Potentially. But, you know, there's risk-reward associated with everything that it is you do in football. That's just part of it. I feel completely comfortable asking professionals to have an increased emphasis in a certain area without worrying about our tackling going helter-skelter, to be quite honest with you.
What does Ben Roethlisberger need to do to reduce some of his turnovers?
You know, Ben is just part of it. You know, he's not solely responsible for our inability to maintain possession of the ball. He wasn't carrying the ball into the end zone and fumbled for a touchback. So he just needs to continue to be thoughtful about the preservation of the ball like he always is, and understand the responsibility that comes with being our signal caller. I don't see any issues in that area, but us collectively need to do a better job.
How about James Conner? You've got a body of experience with Ben to speak confidently of him. Recently, Conner's not shown the same security. Do you have any concerns there?
I really don't, not overly, but I will acknowledge that, you know, as a featured ball carrier in this league, when you got some tape with some balls on the ground, that people use that as motivation. I know we do. You know, if we're playing a featured runner and in recent weeks he's got some balls on the ground, Wednesday morning that's being discussed. And so that's the nature of my conversation with James. Just understand how the other 31 teams function, that in LA somewhere tomorrow morning they'll be talking about, you know, his balls on the ground. So I'll be excited about watching his response to that. But beyond that, no. Got a lot of confidence in him and as a ball carrier and as a central part of what we're doing offensively.
Is there anything technique-wise, you know, we've all covered ball carriers in the past who had to maybe hold the ball differently. Is there anything he's doing fundamentally that needs to change or be altered?
No.
Mike, I was thinking in terms of using the pass to open the run. Because when Ben is passing prolifically, it's like you can't put 8 men in the box. You know, so I was looking at that, and when I see that concept going, he looks unstoppable at that point. I mean, what's your take on that?
You know, we want to have the ability to step into a stadium and dictate our personality that day. And I've been open about that, guys. Sometimes we'll come into a stadium and be run heavy and be focused on that. Sometimes we'll come into a stadium and be capable of throwing it every down. Is how we choose to attack. We're thoughtfully non-rhythmic, if you will, in that regard. We strike for balance, and balance being we're capable of attacking in the ways that we choose. I think that makes it tough on defenses. I think that makes us a tough unit to beat. You know, we'll go through games where we'll throw it a lot like we did last week, and there are positive ramifications of that for the run game. There's games where we've handed the ball to James and he's carried it 30 times, and in subsequent games there's maybe positive consequences in the passing game for that. We're cognizant of all of that, and that's why we don't mind changing our personality based on game planning. But it starts with just having quality people and being able to do a bunch of things. We got solid guys up front that are adept at run blocking and pass blocking. Ben's got a nice arsenal of receivers, and James is doing a good job of running the ball. And so that's why we work hard for balance. I think that is a continual discussion for us week in and week out in terms of how we want to choose to attack people in an effort to keep people off balance, to ring up the scoreboard and make the movement of the ball a more fluid process. At the end of the day, we're going to have to be able to run it. We're going to have to be able to throw it. And sometimes those things are not within our control. Sometimes the commitment of those that we play in certain areas dictate how you approach it. Sometimes your whims and wishes dictate how you approach it. But the reality is, if you want to be a team that stays on the road as it gets narrow, you better be able to do both well. So that's what we strive to do, not only this week in preparation for this opportunity, but largely.
Did that balance get a bit askew in the red zone this past Sunday with the amount of throws in the 2 trips that came up?
Again, I just explained to you our thought process. Sometimes it's our women wish, sometimes it's the opponent. Big picture over the long haul, we'll have the type of balance we desire. I have no issues with our red zone execution over the course of the season. You guys mentioned to me how successful it is, so I'm not going to overreact to what transpired last weekend. You got to give the Denver Broncos credit. They prepared and stepped into a stadium and played winning football, and I'd be remiss if I didn't do that.
How much of a concern is there when you mentioned you like your depth, the depth that you've had, but when you have issues at both tackle and tight end, and you're getting down in numbers, not necessarily down.
Yeah, I'm not willing to acknowledge I have issues at both spots as I stand here. We'll let the week play that out.
Mike, have you been surprised at all what you got in the passing game from Ryan Switzer?
No, man. I watched a lot of North Carolina tape, man. That's a dangerous guy. We're excited about acquiring him. Man, he's still got some ball ahead of him. Room for growth. There's a guy that got on a moving train, and so we're pleased with his contributions, but we're also sensitive to he got on a moving train. He's sensitive to he got on a moving train. I think he's working extremely hard day in and day out to catch up, to get the nuances, the minutia, the things that's going to allow him to be a continued contributor to our efforts.
Will James Washington get a hat Sunday night?
Man, I have no idea. I hadn't even begun to think about that. We got too many global planning issues to look at who gets a hat at this juncture. I hadn't even done some of the core base game planning.
Do you think he's lacking in confidence?
He'd be better equipped to answer that than I. I'll let him speak for himself in that regard.
You have a level of confidence in him right through 11 games?
I got a great deal of confidence in him, but that's a good question. Ask him his level of confidence in himself.
You talk a lot about starters and waiting. The standard is a standard. As we see a lot of teams sort of taken down by injuries, what is your philosophy on the development? Do you spend more time with the backups to catch them up?
It is continually ongoing, particularly when you build your team primarily through the draft the way that we do. You better develop talent. That's always ongoing.
Mike, what's the reason for the rule when the ball goes out of bounds, across the goal line, out of bounds, fumbled, like what happened Sunday, then it's a touchback rather than just putting it where at the one?
I have no idea, man. That's more of an historical question.
You were kind of a silly rule?
No, I'm in support of the rule, certainly. You got to maintain possession of the ball as you go across the goal line. I believe that there's added responsibility there. I believe that the defense should be rewarded if you fumble and it goes into the end zone and no one gets a chance to recover the ball. I like the urgency and the responsibility of possession of the ball, particularly in that area of the field. So I'm not against the rule. I'm a proponent of it. I don't know the history of it.
In terms of the blocked field goal, was that a legal play when you looked at it?
I'll let Al send out a video and talk to you guys about that this week. I got too much other business to focus on. Not my deal.
Is that the second time that sort of thing has happened to you guys?
Again, ask Al.
Mike, do you know if did Gribble suffer the concussion on that one? Do you know?
I do not.
And he said after the game that he wanted to run through the defensive line. He said he could have scored. Do you have any problem with his decision?
I'm not getting into all of that. Put the ball in the end zone, right? I'm a result-oriented guy. This is a result-oriented business. We can talk all day about the means by which to get the job gets done or have an opinion on the means by which the job gets done. My position is get the ball in the end zone.
Mike, you mentioned rewarding the defense and also what Rivers did last week. He was 28 for 29. Last night, Mariota was 22 for 23. Is it becoming too easy to complete a pass in this league? Is that something the competition committee would ever look at or consider?
I'm sure it's something that we do look at. We look at the overall health and competitiveness of the game. We monitor competitive fairness and things of that nature. But those are things that are done at the end of the journey with the totality of it. I'm not ready to have those discussions. I know I'm not looking globally. I got enough issues here in Pittsburgh, PA, and I'm sure the other members of the committee have a similar mindset. I think those are discussions for another time.
Just, if you don't mind, another thought on the core four now. He handled his job a lot of times against Miller. I know even Bennett said going into Denver probably going to give him a lot of help. Did you give him as much help as you anticipated? Did he do more one-on-one with Miller? Or how did that play out as the game went along?
Yeah. He didn't block Miller one-on-one. Nobody blocks Miller one-on-one. So you can write that story if you choose. Pro Bowl tackles get help when blocking Von Miller. That's just the nature of professional ball, but he more than met our expectations.
How is Philip Rivers maturing? As he's getting up there in age?
Hopefully he is mature. He's been at it for a while. Man, he's a guy that you're excited about competing against, man, because you know he's duly prepared. You know he's extremely talented. He's a unique competitor. He's just one of those guys, but he needs no endorsement from me. I think we all in this business understand who he is and what he's capable of.
Is it fair to say he's
potentially playing his best football of his entire career, and it's a Hall of Fame type.
You know, I don't watch him week in and week out, down in and down out, to make that assessment. I just got a lot of respect for him. He's playing really well.
How much can you appreciate when a guy does complete 25 in a row, though, like that? And hoping, I guess you're probably glad he got it out of his system.
You looking for a comment?
Just on the appreciation of,
I'm just waiting.
Of somebody completing that many in a row.
Impressive.
Anyone else?
With many defenses double teaming Juju Smith-Schuster and Antonio Brown, you are opening the offense up with some of your tight ends as well. But can you talk about the development of some of your third wide receivers, like a James Washington or a Hunter or Hayward?
I think you know, our ability to run or throw is kind of a discussion that we've been having. Within the throwing discussion, it has to be the utilization of all eligibles. And some guys get the ball on a more consistent basis regardless of circumstance, guys like Antonio, guys like Juju. Other guys do it in a more situational way or supportive way, but their contributions are equally significant. In different weeks, there are different guys. Some weeks is Vance McDonald, some weeks is Jesse James. Last week, Ryan Switzer got some attention, and sometimes it's James Conner. Some weeks, man, he is highly involved in the passing game. We don't hide from that. We're pretty transparent in that regard. We got to utilize all 5 eligibles. Some are going to be more hot than others based on game circumstances or planning. Some of them are going to be a part of all scenarios, like 8-4 and 1-9.
Any idea how close Eli Rogers is to being healthy enough?
I don't know. Did he tweet anything? Social media? No, I don't know.
Would you be willing to explain to us or educate us what should have actually happened on that last play?
I don't want to get into things from a competitive standpoint. We may utilize a play similar to that or that play specifically moving forward. It doesn't serve anything from my perspective to discuss the details of it. I won't.
Anyone else?
Thank you.